Good afternoon, and welcome to our session, Pilot to Production, Operationalizing AI Across the Enterprise. So I am Tim Vandermel. I'm one of the senior advisors here at C3. At the end here, I've got my partner in crime, Ryan Dengate, who's one of our senior engineers. Over the past few years, AI has moved from being a curiosity, something organizations experimented with, to clear expectations from boards, customers, and employees. But delivering real impact takes more than just plugging in a tool. We all know this. It requires alignment across business and IT. It requires readiness of data, which is a big one. Strong governance, clarity around where AI creates value, as well as where it introduces risk. So short or small little disclaimer here. We realize this is only 25 minutes. There's probably going to be a couple of topics with what you're going to hear. Hey, how come you guys didn't talk about this? How come you didn't talk about that? The idea is if you have questions, I'm sure Keith and Pat would be more than happy to address those at their booth or afterwards. But what we're going to do today is we're going to talk through a couple of real examples. So Keith, I'm going to start with you. Why don't you tell us a real recent example that you guys helped out a client with, and throughout the story, Ryan and I will just be asking a few more follow-up questions, and then we'll have Pat go as well.
Yeah, sure. So quick intro for me. My name is Keith Cadger. I'm a solution architect with Expedient. For those not familiar with Expedient, we're a cloud and IT managed services provider, 15 data centers located across the U.S. So think private cloud on VM or Nutanix. If you want to learn more about our other offerings, come see us at the booth. Love to walk you through it. But as far as a recent AI project that we've completed, we recently worked with a heavy equipment rental company. So think like renting excavators, bobcats, things like that. And they were seeing some challenges around the time it was taking to repair equipment. When equipment's down, it can't be rented. It was costing them money. So what they wanted to do is use AI to streamline the processes around repairing equipment. One of the challenges that they were having was the time it was taking for technicians to find information on repairing a piece of equipment. It's typically in a service manual. And finding that information, reading through it, finding through the details, getting the details on the steps to repair a piece of equipment, very time consuming. What we did was we provided a secure AI gateway, so a dedicated AI platform for them, and we connected it with a document repository that was in their environment. It was a SharePoint site that had all of their service manuals in it. So what they could do is leverage the secure AI gateway, which is like a ChatGPT-like experience. You use a web browser, type a prompt, get a response. They would go into the portal, type, I'm working on this piece of equipment, I'm going to be doing this repair, and it would outline the steps to repair that piece of equipment. Right, and give them access to the reference material, which was the service manual, so they can continue the conversation, ask follow-up questions, get more details. But that in a nutshell is what that project was about, connecting a secure AI platform with a document repository and letting a technician have a quick way to get that answer.
All right, so I want to talk about the people side of this. So who initially brought this problem to the table for it to be solved? So that's step one, and
sure.
Then I've got another follow-up after that.
Yeah, no, it's usually a team, right? So when I get introduced into a project, I'm talking with maybe the CIO, maybe it's with the IT manager, or maybe it's someone that knows the application and knows the data. So it's always a mix of people that's on these calls. I don't remember who was on this specific one, but I'm sure it's like senior leadership who would be talking to.
Okay, did you run into any roadblocks with that when this specific team, like, hey, we know we have this problem, but do we have any roadblocks going back to executive leadership saying, why are we doing this? Why are we spending time on this?
Yeah, they were wondering if they'd actually see a return on the investment, if they could actually connect the AI platform with all of their data. One of the problems they were having is some of their documents were physical. They were actually stored in an office. So those needed to all be digitized and then stored in a document repository with everything else. The other problem they had was their data was everywhere, and it needed to be consolidated into one central repository. Again, another roadblock that we had to work through with them.
From the last session I was just in, we talked about AI and data security. You mentioned a little bit. I'm curious, can you explain when an organization is connecting into an unstructured data source like a file repository, how does that secure gateway work, and how does it help protect from, data leakage and other sorts of risks?
Yeah, so in our platform, we're leveraging best-in-class public AI models from OpenAI, from Google, from Perplexity, from Anthropic, but all of those AI models have attestations that they will not train on any data or user inputs put into the platform. So any data, if you were to connect it, like upload a document, attach a document, it's not ending up on a public server where it can be referenced by others. Your data is enclosed and kept in this dedicated private environment.
When we talk about the length of time, I want to kind of coincide that with the ROI piece of this. So obviously there's a proof of value to see if this thing can actually be vetted out. Can you give the audience some insight as to how long that process was for them to say, like, yes, this is a real problem that we need to solve, and this is the ROI for that?
So the fact that they knew their problem that they wanted to solve when they came to us sped up everything. They weren't just looking for, I want a secure AI gateway that I can use to just be more productive. They had a problem to solve. That helped a ton. So having that up front sped up the process entirely. Once we realized that we could meet the technical requirements, it was very quick.
All right. Ryan, any other questions for Keith? All right. Pat, let's switch it over to you, man. If you want to do a quick little intro, and then you can go into your example.
Yeah, perfect. Hey, everyone. Pat Iafredo. I am a sales engineer at UiPath. If you're not familiar with UiPath, we're one of the leading automation platforms. So we've got our, we kind of got our start in robotic process automation, but we've since moved into everything from intelligent document processing, now agentic automation, really focused on the orchestration of different AI technologies to solve a process right now. So recent project we just wrapped up. Actually, this customer was just on stage at our keynote event about a month ago. I was pretty proud of that. But they are a law firm, so they operate on a fixed fee engagement model. Right, so they have some really big clients. We're not actually allowed to say the names of them. I'll avoid names in general right now. But essentially, a lawsuit comes in, fixed fee. Right, most law firms operate in the sense that billed hourly, so they don't really care how long it takes. Fixed fee, they're like, okay, we need to be efficient, essentially. Right, so what we're doing with them, or what we did with them, they came to us with the use case. They came to us with a few use cases and said, hey, can we solve one of these? Right, and that really came about because they have a strong central AI team. Right, they're not kind of figuring out department. They've had a lead within their organization kind of driving this change. They have a lot of AI tools already out there as well. Right, so we came in for the orchestration piece of all this. What we're doing is essentially taking in a lawsuit, reading that lawsuit, figuring out every point within that lawsuit that is needs to be responded to. They're numbered paragraphs. There's like 200 of them. We have to take every one of those and run them essentially past a what's called an index of standard language, which are standard responses. We have an agent align each one of those paragraphs to the appropriate response from that, generate a template, and then hand it to a lawyer. Right, so avoiding that risk component, we're then handing it to a lawyer to speed along their process and say, hey, this is what we found. This is what we think an appropriate response is. From there, we can send it back to the complainee or the person actually filing the lawsuit.
When I think of like law firms, there's a whole bunch of like data classification and what that source of truth is. That had to be part of that example? Like, how are we stacking up that lawsuit versus like what the law actually says?
Yeah, and that goes back to that standard or index of standard language, right? So they have those sources of essentially, hey, this is what we respond to in a situation like this. They have a few other tools that they're running along there as well to tell you, okay, what type of lawsuit is this? Based on that, we can actually kick it into fully human remediation if it's something that needs some delicate touch along those lines. But yeah, otherwise we're grounding them in that source of truth.
Pat, I'm curious, when we talk efficiencies like that, I think being able to read through the document, respond to quickly. Were there any metrics that were captured that really helped prove the ROI and say that, yes, we were able to achieve such and such? Were there anything that you were able to glean?
Yeah, in terms of like hard numbers that I can provide right now, not necessarily, but we're definitely comparing it to what the average response times was before when they were doing this fully manual to now, what do we have it supplemented with these tools and solutions?
Well, response times for some people can be one of their key metrics to track. So it's good to know.
Well, you'd mentioned a centralized AI team that kind of approves the projects, or at least says, yes, you can work on this one. I can only imagine the complexity when you're working with a law firm, because they can be pretty vocal, from what I hear. I'm curious, can you give any more insight as to whether special approvals, or was it truly the centralized AI team? Like, I guess let me ask this in a better way. When it came to the executive leadership, did they have to put their stamp of approval on this as well, or did they kind of democratize the production of these use cases?
Yeah, I think what's made this law firm in particular incredibly successful, and they've won awards for their ingenuity and innovation and everything like that. They have incredible alignment between their CIO and their business. So their CIO is kind of pushing everything down from the business and saying, this is what we need to be doing. So their AI team was right in line with their automation team, so we were working kind of hand in hand with them. In terms of special approvals, like they got it. Right, they've been working with these tools in the past, and they understood, okay, there are certain risks and complexities. How are we going about mitigating those? And that was like, we kind of went through like a 2-hour call to figure it out. That was it, right? They weren't super risk adverse in that sense. They knew there were risks associated with it. They knew how to mitigate them. And as a result, they weren't stuck in this analysis phase. And that's where I'm finding a lot of customers are stuck, is that analysis phase. But they're willing to essentially say, all right, let's fail fast. If we need to fail at all, let's figure out ways to mitigate those risks, and let's start to get some value out of these things.
I want to go a little bit back to the the moving of the needle. Like during that proof of value, you had to do, because a lot of people are stuck in that proof of concept phase. So was there like an aha moment during that where it's like, okay, now we've actually been able to prove this out. Now we're going to start moving this to production. I'm just curious to see how fast that specific process was.
For this one, not necessarily, right? They came into it with the intent of, we're going to make this work. We know it can be done, so we're kind of skipping over the pilot phase, right? We're building this from soup to nuts, and we're pushing it to production, and they are in production right now, right? So they went in fully intending to skip the pilot phase. They wanted something production ready, and I kind of think that's part of the mindset that they need to have, right? We can't be necessarily testing the waters on everything. I think, I'd love to hear your take on this, that nothing's going to be perfect, right? Especially in this AI realm. It's about figuring out how much we can do and how we can mitigate those risks associated with things. So they said, if we can get something to production that's given us 85% of exactly what we're looking for, we can take that last 15%.
Yeah, usually it's let's get started, let's get using the tools, let's see what it can do, and then let's iterate off of that. A lot of times a use case, like you know how it goes, you start using something and then you're like, ooh, wouldn't it be cool if we could, and then you adjust and adopt. Like that's the mindset you have to have with AI. As you start to use it, one, you'll find more use cases or a different, better way to solve the problem. So just getting AI in your hands and using it every day, it has value. Just start.
All right, well, now you made me think of something. So with these recent examples that you guys have just described, what was the next thing that these clients came back and said, okay, well, now that we've done this, I think this kind of ties into the next use case that we have. And I know I'm kind of throwing you guys on the spot with this one, but is there anything that comes to mind?
So it's every company that, has multiple departments, right? So that one use case around, hey, repairing equipment. What about the HR needs that a company has, right? So it's open enrollment for a lot of us right now. Maybe you're getting your new benefits plan, and hey, I need to read through all the changes, right? So being able to, answer those questions with AI, okay, let's tackle that use case. Or maybe you're trying to solve a problem in customer service, right? Maybe it's taking a long time for customer service reps to come up to speed on tickets. And you want to use AI to summarize all the different notes and updates in a customer's ticket. All right, so you're going to use AI to summarize what's in a ticketing system. The more you use it, there's always the next use case. You just need to talk to the different departments in an organization.
Yeah, this customer came back with 8 or 9 use cases. I owe them a call to kind of review those. That needs to happen relatively soon. But I think what they're finding is there's a lot of reusability in some of the components, right? They've built these components, they're plugged into their documents, they're plugged into these indexes, they're plugged into their knowledge bases. Now we can go use them for the other use cases that touch those things, right? You've done the work once. Let's see if we can glean a little bit more value there, right?
So, we found ourselves in quite a few conversations where there's so many ideas and there's all these like grandiose plans, but sometimes it just gets stuck at certain levels. So I'm curious from your guys' perspective, based off of your experiences, how have you seen teams work collaboratively together to move that POC from like a stuck POC to moving that forward to like, oh wow, we're actually seeing the value out of this? Because I got to go back to the people side. Sometimes we just can't get out of our own ways.
Yeah. So when you have a group of people that need to like align on a policy, like first and foremost, like what solution are we going to use? Like, are you going to use like Expedient's AI control? Okay, we're going to go with this platform, and then what do we want to do? Just what problem are we solving? And then you're starting to just work through the challenges of that specific problem. You're talking through what data you need to solve that problem, what people need access to that data. Do you need data? Is data privacy a concern? Do I need to be filtering out confidential information? You're just working through the challenges specific to each individual use case. That's how you go from being stuck to get moving, right? I mean, that's at least in my eyes.
Yeah, to further that, I haven't found like a good blanket approach. I feel like a lot of people are looking for that blanket approach. I'm seeing much more success from customers, and like our thing is we don't need you to use our AI solutions. We don't care about that. We want you to use something to fix the problem. We're focused on the orchestration aspect. So for us, it's like use us or don't. I don't care, but just get out of your own way. That's what I wish I could tell a lot of customers is just get out of your own way. They're kind of stuck in this analysis paralysis piece, and there's not a blanket solution. There's not.
Yeah, and maybe you're thinking about it like, okay, what are my technical requirements that I have to solve for, and just identifying those, and then just working through them, just one by one. Use a process.
I'm curious when we talk about data. I mean, this all runs on data, and part of getting a good output is having your data ready. So do you have any examples of maybe how you've helped clients in this initiative get their data ready from maybe not just where it resides, but in a spot that they can trust it?
Yeah, so one of the things we can do is connect our platform with company data. A lot of people ask me, can I just bring in everything from a SharePoint site or a big file server and just have AI figure it out?
Right.
You don't want to do that.
Right.
That's a bad idea. You want to use a more curated data set. Right, so the people that need the data know what they need a lot of times. So you just have to ask a lot of questions. One of the things that we provide in our solution is an observability platform. So we can track every prompt, every response, but also what data they're using. So now you can get insight into what they're doing with the platform, and now you can go talk to your champions or your users and then talk through individual use cases. You've got like a flashlight that you can shine in the corners to figure out what they're doing, what data they need, and then
Take the
curate that
guesswork
data
out of
set.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But like the idea here, if you're working on a use case that needs HR data, identify the data you need and use a small subset of data.
Yeah, I mean we don't play too much within that data preparation realm but to the point, where we play is essentially wherever that data is, we can go get it. Because we have robots that can interact with a mainframe, a legacy terminal application, whatever it might be. So wherever it is, it's important to have real-time data to those things. So that's a little bit more where we're playing rather than the preparation piece.
All right, so it's already been mentioned a little bit today, and I'm just curious to get your guys' reaction on this. So, Keith, and yours, there was a centralized AI team, and Pat, maybe on yours, it was more of a decentralized, or a number of business units that were coming together with their use cases. I don't think there's a right answer here. I don't think we think there's a right answer to this, but can you give the audience like your perspective on like, are you seeing more success when all these AI policies, or I'm going to say not policies, but use cases are more centralized and there's a team that is approving or disapproving that? Or are you seeing it more successful when it's decentralized?
As long as they can play together nicely, it doesn't matter. But honestly, as long as there's a team that's actually thinking about it, the people, the data, all of those policies, there's someone that's actually focused on an AI project and how it all comes together. I don't think there's a right or wrong way, but I am seeing more people with AI-focused titles joining calls than ever before. It used to just be CIOs, CTOs, security officers, and then IT managers, and maybe people that know data. But now there are people that are literally focused on AI initiatives and projects that are joining calls.
Yeah, there's definitely not a one-size-fits-all. I see really good success from business-driven stuff for more point solution type things, right? We have, someone sitting in our inventory supply or whatever, and we have an inventory optimization solution. We can have a simple conversation with them. That cycle is generally a little bit quicker. I see better kind of enterprise-wide adoption when we're looking at a centralized AI team, like the use case I was discussing earlier. I will say I see a lot more paralysis out of a centralized AI team too. Sometimes they're just kind of in their little sphere and just going at it, and like one vendor to another, to another, to another, and they can't make up their minds. So there's a double-edged sword in there. I think there's a lot of power that can come from that team, and you can kind of have that one central strategy, but man, can they get stuck.
How many times are you asked, what is so-and-so doing?
Every day.
That's all the time.
How do you react to getting those questions?
If I have a relevant use case for that's what's getting a lot more traction when I'm having conversations, is if I can say this specific customer in your specific vertical is doing this, they are seeing these results, it almost takes away that risk for that customer. But otherwise, I find myself spinning wheels without a reference, honestly.
Yeah, again, all right, we're going to give you a secure AI gateway. We're going to connect it to your data. What data do you need? Let's work through a process, or what problem are you trying to solve? What data do you need? Who needs access to it? Let's just follow a framework. It's very simple. Just lead. When they ask what other people are doing, it's the same framework.
Yeah, I just think, to Pat's point, it's kind of been the wild, wild west. People have been developing it, and until we actually get some validated success stories out there, people are just like, I don't know if I really want to jump in. So I feel like from the conversations now, there is starting to be a library of what works and what doesn't work. So maybe in the next, I don't want to say years, but in next time we'll be able to come back and say, yes, this is possible, or no, this isn't, and give some good concrete evidence why.
We did want to leave a few minutes for questions, but one more for each of you guys. If you wanted this audience to take away one thing that they can bring back to their teams, what would that be?
To try something. It doesn't have to be this massive use case that you're going to see millions of dollars in returns from. Try something that you think is a pain point. If you have a pain point, go to solve it. That's where you need to be looking. You don't need to be bringing in these solutions to kind of try to figure out how can we wedge them into our business. Find that pain point, solve it. Doesn't matter how small it is, a win is a win.
Yeah, I would say starting small and just getting going is a great idea. Crawl, walk, run approach, you've probably heard, right? Let's get the platform in place. Let's get people in there. Let them start using the platform. And as time goes, get more and more complicated, connect more data. But just take a phased rollout approach. That probably would work the best.
I think one thing that I heard earlier was, I think it was Dr. Paul Isley that was up there, was anything that's task-oriented, maybe it could be a really good place to really investigate and create a list and see, could we automate, could we use artificial intelligence to take these tasks and get them off of our workforces back.
Cool. All right. What questions does the audience have? And I can run around with the mic if need be. Don't be shy. Yes, Tony.
Obviously, you guys have way more experience dealing with customers in AI. I was curious is there a common theme or maybe misconception of what people think AI will initially do for them? That's why they're having a communication with you that you experience often.
I see a fair amount of people think it's magic, it's gonna solve all of my problems. It's not. We generally still want to be looking at something that is a kind of a defined process. If there's a hard challenge in there, generally it makes it a little bit easier to solve. and provides us some additional avenues of approach, but I think that's usually what I run. Like, it's not a magic Band-Aid. There are still some root issues that need to be fixed in a lot of organizations.
I'd say that most people that I talk to that struggle are trying to be way too complicated, way too fast.
So I'm used to asking hard questions, but this time I'm going to ask a super softball. So how often are you actually seeing people trying to use AI to solve what a simple robot would actually do for them? And I assume, Pat, this is for you.
Every day. Yeah, well, we have a lot of conversations that start with, I have this great agentic use case. We do like 5 minutes of discovery and say, we could have solved this 15 years ago for you. I'm glad we're having the conversation, but like this is core automation. Occasionally there might be a Gen AI activity or something in there for us, but yeah, a lot of the times core automation.
One of the things that we're doing here at Borg Warner is doing quite a bit of engineering, and we know eventually some of our customer base is going to be interested in what is a human input to a particular problem, and then what is a AI input to a problem. Hey, have you guys done any thought leadership on how do we track that? How do we manage that activity moving forward? I know that's not a softball question, but thought I'd get it out there and pick your brains.
Yeah, I got none for you.
Could you clarify like a touch on what you mean by input?
For example, we're getting, let's say we got to get asked, use aluminum for a particular engine mount, just pick on that, instead of, iron. The human will give kind of the input parameters to, the generative AI activity, and then let the AI engineer the structure around the hard points that have to attach to the frame into the engine. The human's given the input, the LLM's doing some work, the human will then iterate on that, maybe adjust a few things, the LLM will do some more work. Have you guys thought about, how do you track some of that? And we know, some of the OEMs are going to be asking us, well, who did what, along the path? And, because it's iterative work, engineering, we're just interested if you guys have encountered that or thought about that at all.
Yeah, so we're doing this along a process, and I'll say I've not built an engine through one of these processes, so slightly different, but same concept, right? Our product is providing that telemetry and oversight into a full process, so we can see who's done what inputs were where, what came from the LLM, what came from a person, when was it, like all of those things. We're working on essentially that observability layer for a process, so we know which agent it came from, when it came from them, who provided what. So we're trying to solve that challenge. Yeah. So I think a lot of people are thinking about that though, so you should be in good hands.
Definitely something that's just on the cusp. Everybody's going to ask for it, and I'm not sure many people are ready for it. So it's stressing me out.
As a follow-up to that question, it kind of goes into the risk scenarios between those two. If I'm putting in input A and AI is putting out input B, and there's a fault in input B, whose fault does that rely on? And that goes with a lot of AI models on who holds the error and that risk with it. And like, how do you guys differentiate between that risk? Like who and how?
Any output from AI needs to be verified and checked. Like AI makes big mistakes, right? So let's just make that statement. I think we all know that.
Yeah, in all of our processes and all of the solutions I've architected, I still recommend, if we go human to AI, have another human, right? We need to have that final check before we hand it off to something like a robot, which is a different piece of technology for people who aren't aware.
We have time for one more. No pressure. Yeah, okay.
Okay, I'm curious on the AI world, how do we need to build up the rollback plan, or if yes, what kind of differences between the AI rollback compared to our traditional IT? You always have a rollback plan when you release to production, so that's my question.
Going back to paper, is that what you're saying?
What's the AI rollback plan?
Yeah,
Is that?
because like you said, you have to check AI
So is your question,
I think like quality assurance,
Yeah.
but maybe I'm off.
I mean, specifically within our tool set, like we're doing extensive testing before we're ever rolling to production. So ideally, we're checking those inputs.
I was just going to say for her, challenge there is really to take your processes and do your business impact analysis and start rolling AI into that review so that you know what processes are going into AI. You know, are they critical processes? Are they, you know, supportive processes? I think that's really on us as businesses to really kind of figure that out from our assessment side. But, you know, the other part that you guys are talking about, I think there's a lot of hesitation even by executives. They want something, right? I want you to do something AI driven. The people who are just used to using software and having tasks pushed to them all day long are sitting there saying, what questions am I supposed to be asking this thing, right? Like, how do you do that? It is the crawl, walk, run. I mean, I recently did a summary of a AWS outage and a possible impact. I'm like, just review my emails. It's been a day, right? Give me a summary. Boom, there it is. Yep, fits right along the lines that I expect from what this day was like, to kind of summarizing it for executives. So there's different ways to use it, but I think it is teaching. I mean, it's like when we all stepped into business years ago. I don't think anybody ever showed me how to use Outlook email, right? It's like sit in front of the PC and pull it up, and here's the basis of sending an email. So there's some parts to Outlook that you learn on your own, so to speak, better practices than others.
All right, well, really appreciate the engagement. Pat, Keith, thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Thank you for joining the session. It will be recorded. And yeah, enjoy the rest